let's get to it. Here's the brief news from the world over this week. Pope Francis met privately with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday for 50 minutes. Vatican spokesman Father Federico Lombardi said Pope Francis took the opportunity to urge Putin to work for a peaceful resolution to the conflict in Ukraine, as well as the humanitarian crisis and the Christian persecution in the Middle East. As was the case at their last meeting in 2013, Putin was late by an hour for his appointment. And Pope Francis has created a new Vatican tribunal to address the bishop's failure to report cases of sexual abuse. This tribunal will be established within the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith to, quote, judge bishops with regard to crimes of the abuse of office when connected to the abuse of minors, end quote. For years, the Vatican has been criticized for not doing more to punish or remove bishops accused of protecting abusive clergy. Last year, the Pope accepted the resignation of Kansas City's St. Joseph Bishop Robert Finn, who had been convicted for failing to report suspected abuse. According to Vatican spokesman Father Lombardi, the new tribunal establishes a process by which the Holy See can discipline or remove bishops who are deemed negligent in handling sexual abuse cases. But the Pope always had the power to remove negligent bishops. And Pope Francis once again addressed what he calls gender ideology. On Monday, at a meeting with Puerto Rican bishops in Rome, the Holy Father observed that traditional marriage between one man and one woman is, quote, being questioned by the so-called gender ideology that seeks to undermine the proper understanding of marriage, as well as human sexuality. Noting that the family is under attack by a number of social ills, Francis stressed that the value and beauty of marriage comes from the complementarity of men and women, which he referred to as the crown of God's creation. And the Holy Father seems to be tamping down expectations that the Church might soon recognize the purported Marian apparitions of Medjugorje. Days after announcing on his return trip from Bosnia-Herzegovina that a decision about Medjugorje was imminent, the Pope warned against visionaries and the constant search for special insight or novelty in the faith. During his homily at the Mass on Tuesday, the Pope appeared to mock such devotions, joking about those who might ask, quote, where are the visionaries who might tell us exactly what message Our Lady will be sending at 4 o'clock this afternoon? The Pope did not directly mention Medjugorje, but the comment resembled Medjugorje devotees and the seers who claim to have received messages from the Virgin Mary since 1981. They also announce when upcoming messages are expected. Since the first reported apparition in the small Herzegovian town, millions have made pilgrimages there, and the devotion is celebrated by many Catholics worldwide. We will continue to follow this story. Back in the U.S., President Barack Obama is putting his best spin on his signature health care law, days ahead of a Supreme Court decision that could mark its demise. On Tuesday, he declared the Affordable Care Act a reality of American life. Obama made the here-to-stay remarks at the annual Catholic Health Association conference here in Washington. He again personally thanked Sister Carol Keehan, head of the Catholic Hospital Trade Association, for her decisive role in pushing the measure through Congress in 2010.
Her steadiness, her strength, her steadfast voice have been an inspiration to me. We would not have gotten the Affordable Care Act done had it not been for her. I want to thank the entire Catholic Health Association.
You may remember Sister Keehan on this show vigorously defending the Catholic Health Association's push for the measure and her repeated claim that she was not at cross purposes with the U.S. bishops. The bishops opposed the ACA over abortion funding and conscience protection concerns. The soon-to-be-released Supreme Court ruling could trigger the collapse of a key ACA funding mechanism, which would require congressional action for the health plan to continue. And a 3-judge panel at the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld a Texas abortion law credited with closing multiple abortion clinics. The 2013 law requires most of the state's abortion facilities to meet the same safety standards as other surgical centers. It also requires abortion doctors to have admitting privileges at local hospitals. The law has led to the shuttering of more than 40 abortion facilities. Just 7 remain open. Abortion rights activists say the law unduly and unconstitutionally restricts access to abortion. The petitioners in the case say they will appeal the decision to the Supreme Court. And in a related story, the number of abortions in the United States has declined by 12% since 2010. This, according to the data collected across 45 states by the Associated Press. There is some disagreement as to why abortions are down. President of Planned Parenthood, Cecilia Richards, said it is because of better access to birth control and sex education. Charmaine Yost of Americans United for Life attributes it to an increased awareness of the humanity of the baby. She says there's an entire generation of women who saw a sonogram of their child's first baby picture. There are new concerns over a report that the Islamic State could soon develop its own weapon of mass destruction. According to Australian intelligence, ISIS has enough radioactive material to suggest it has the capacity to build a large and devastating dirty bomb. ISIS seized the radioactive materials from research centers and hospitals as it swept through Iraq and Syria. The jihadist group declared its ambition to develop weapons of mass destruction in the most recent edition of its propaganda magazine. NATO, as well as the Indian officials have previously expressed concerns that ISIS could acquire a nuclear weapon, possibly in Pakistan. And as ISIS continues to gain a foothold in Libya, 88 Eritrean Christian migrants have been abducted in that country. According to reports, they were taken in a dawn raid on June 3rd while traveling by truck on their way to Tripoli. Eyewitnesses who escaped the kidnapping said the militant Muslims asked their captives questions about the Quran. Several of those kidnapped were children, and at least 12 were women. And finally, the Holy See on Wednesday signed an historic agreement with the United States to pinpoint American taxpayers hiding assets within the Vatican Bank. The deal aims to identify people who are not annually declaring all their foreign assets to the U.S. Internal Revenue Service. U.S. officials would not say how many U.S. individuals hold money at the Vatican, but the number is believed to be rather small, perhaps in the dozens. The Holy See becomes the latest of approximately 62 countries to sign on to the U.S. Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. Is there nowhere to sanctify your money these days?